All right, we are live. Welcome, DoorGrow hackers, to the DoorGrow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing your business and life, and you are open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses and their owners. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now let's get into the show. And today's guest, everybody, is Vicky Methven. And Vicky, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason.
So Vicky, we've known each other for a little bit now, and you do a few different things. And today we're going to be talking about insurance buying in 2019 and understanding these options. And so before we get into that, why don't you share with listeners just a little bit about you and your background and how you kind of got into doing what you're doing now?
Thanks, Jason. Well, it's really a little crazy. It wasn't what I planned. Of course, half the time we do what we do as we age just changes and morphs. But I've owned companies my whole life. And as a business owner, I found out that I learned what my insurance didn't cover when I made a claim and found out it wasn't covered. But the whole rest of the time that I paid it for years and years and years, I believed that I had coverage. And that really bothered me. So as I grew in my relationship and in my role of risk management, kind of under an entire umbrella from folks, I realized that this was a real problem, not just for me and my previous businesses, but for everyone. And a lot of it has to do with the way our insurance agents treat us. So that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. And we talk about, when I deal with my clients, I talk about risk on all levels. So it's a relationship and helping people to understand what they bought, why they're buying it, and what they really need and maybe don't need. So that's just kind of why I do what I do. I have a heart for helping small businesses, and I have a heart for this industry. So I just kind of figured out a way to make it marketable, because the girls got to eat.
There you go. So Vicky, so your company's the Methven Agency, correct?
Correct.
And so tell us about, let's get into this topic of insurance and why this matters, because it's a topic that we see come up in the DoorGrow Club. People are asking about it, and there's lots of different types of insurance. So where do you think we should start?
Well, basically, the premise behind it. Insurance has changed so much because business has changed so much. A commercial general liability policy, that's what we're all used to buying, because that's what everybody has bought for their companies forever. But that's for like brick and mortar things. And there's some coverage for things that we do today. But insurance policies grow over time. So we need to understand as consumers how they're even structured. And it's crazy, but most people, if they read their insurance policies at all, will read the very beginning of it. And they'll go, oh, I'm covered for all of this stuff. But what they don't realize is the structure of an insurance policy is the beginning gives you a lot, the middle takes most of it away, and the end gives you back some. So you really need to know what's in that policy. And I hazard a guess that most people that are listening to this have told their insurance agent, oh, I need general liability and I need E&O and I might need some commercial vehicle. They make that decision and their insurance person just sells it to them. There's a thing called delivering a policy, which is part of your insurance agent's duty to you. And it doesn't mean handing you the paperwork. It means
Right.
explaining to you what's in it and what it covers and what it doesn't. So that's really a big piece of what people need to understand is what are your real risks and what kind of policies should you really have? And then what aren't they going to cover anyway? Because no policy is going to cover everything.
And so this is one of your areas of expertise is helping to deliver the policy effectively.
Right. And I'm not going to be your insurance agent for anything you buy.
Okay.
That's not my gig. I will have that conversation with your insurance agent, help you have that conversation with your insurance agent, help find you an insurance agent or agency that can help you the best. But I work for you, not for the insurance company and not for the commission.
Got it. Right. So, so you kind of say maybe you're a connector of sorts.
I'm conduit. Yes, Jason.
There you go. Okay, cool. So if you're connecting these people and, connecting property managers to the, the right insurance companies, how do you go about making this decision, like in figuring out what they really need and what they, versus what they think they need and versus what maybe an insurance, somebody that provides insurance would be trying to sell them. So how do you control all that? How do you figure that out?
Well, it's really just a conversation. We have to look at, and every company is going to be different. So you need to look at what your company has in liability. Are you brick and mortar? Do you have a lot of things? What we used to do is businesses used to have product liability issues, and they had brick and mortar, so they needed slip and fall and all of these other things. And now we're moving into this service provider role and dealing with online scenarios, and everything's data driven and all of those things. So you need to look at, do you have employees? Are they 1099? Are they virtual? How are you handling data? That's the biggest risk that especially property managers face, more so even than the general liability side, is going to be that cyber risk. And the key is insurance policies are built on the law of large numbers. And that's why it's so easy to get a quote for your personal stuff, because every insurance agency or broker, even if they're independent, they have a tool and they plug your statistics in, what's your zip code, how many kids do you have, what kind of car do you drive, all of those things in, and it will pull back a quote for every carrier they can write you with. And that's how they decide where to put you. With commercial insurance, it's not the same way because there's so many variables. This is the reason why a lot of people don't even want to take on insurance in being an agent for small businesses, because there's not a lot of commission in it. It's a lot of work. They have to quote every single different carrier that they think they might fit you into. The commissions are low. And so actually delivering your policy and taking that time and spending it with you to teach you, there's no money in it.
Yeah, it's not a profitable thing for them. So obviously they're not going to invest a whole lot of time and attention there. They're like, let's move on to the next person.
And the crazy part too is everybody in property management and real estate, we all have E&O insurance, right? It's what we do because we might make an error. We might forget to tell somebody something, whatever it is. People don't realize that.
So explain what E&O insurance is for people that are just getting started.
Okay. E&O is errors and omissions. And it's something that you have to carry as a licensed realtor. In most cases, I have to carry it. I'm required to carry it. Part of my licensing as a licensed insurance agent, I have to carry E&O. And what it does is it pays a claim if I make an error or I neglect to tell you something that's pertinent to your policy. So if I'm the agent of record and I sell you an insurance policy and I don't tell you what it really covers and doesn't cover, and I didn't take the time to fulfill my fiduciary responsibility of knowing what you needed coverage for,
Yeah.
You have a legitimate claim against my insurance if I'm your agent of record.
So now you said the biggest risk is cyber risk. So so maybe you could explain that, and then maybe we could get into what are all the different types of insurance and liabilities that a property manager needs to be paying attention to and have in place.
Okay, so cyber liability insurance is insuring when there's a data breach. And a data breach can be anything. A data breach can be your smartphone got lost because it's hooked to your network. It could be your laptop. It could be someone in your office stole the data. But here's the biggest one. Your property management software provider. Hello, property managers have everybody's non-public information. Property management companies probably have more information than your doctor does. They definitely got more information than just the credit reporting bureaus. We all know Equifax had this giant data breach, right?
Yeah.
But what happens and what kind of coverages are there? It's not just, it used to be just coverages to make the client whole who you lost their data. Now it has there's third-party coverages, there's all sorts of different coverages that are involved in that, and you need to know what they are. The key to cyber liability insurance, though, is the law of large numbers is not on the side of the underwriters. So the people that are deciding what the premiums are don't have any data to decide how much the premium should be based on what the risk is. They don't have that ratio because it's a fairly new coverage. So what happens is you could be paying a lot for a little or a little for a lot, and you don't know as a consumer. So that's where it's super important to have someone who's got your back and who's going to get a broad spectrum of quotes from multiple carriers and then show you the differences and let you decide where you want your coverage to be.
Right. So connected to the cyber risk, I wanted to point out to listeners that I think a lot of times we assume we're okay. But the challenge is that a lot of data breaches aren't even really made public. They aren't really shared, and there isn't much conversation about it. If it's a big deal, yes, but a lot of us have logins and passwords into hundreds maybe of different websites, and any one of those could have been hacked. They might not even have known. And that if you use the same login or password on multiple sites, which a lot of people do, that is now out there, and it's been spread on lists and different listservs and different things so that other people have your login, and it's been put out there. So Basecamp recently had a challenge with their software that there were people were trying to do hack attempts, and they blocked it, but they put it out there saying everybody should, if you're using the same password on multiple sites, you should check yourself on this website. So they give this website, and it's really kind of scary to look at. So I'm going to give this to the listeners. It's haveibeenpwned.com. So it's, instead of owned, you replace the O with a P. So it's have I been, and then P as in Peter, WNED.com. And you can plug in your email address there, and it will show how many times that email address and connected to logins has been publicly posted by hackers on forums and things. And yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so I recommend listeners, you check that out just to get a perspective that some of your info may be out there. And if you're using the same login on multiple sites, that's kind of scary. And data breaches inevitably happen in some form or fashion, even if it's just an internal team member that you fired. I had a team member that I fired that she started deleting stuff and getting into stuff because she had some logins into some things that were part of her job. And it doesn't matter if you're using LastPass or any of that, because those browsers can store logins and they can store passwords and things like that. And so a lot of times we think we're secure and safe when we're not. So,
well, and here's the thing about a data breach, Jason. If you have a data breach, you have to notify people. There's rules around that. There's laws around that. It is crazy what you need to do. And the average cost is between $100 and $200 per identity in your system. Think about this if you're a property manager. You have previous tenants, current tenants, declined tenants, and all of their family members' information. You have owners, you have past owners, you have present owners, you have employee information, you have all of this information. Take all of those numbers, add them up, and multiply them times just $100.
Right.
That will put most of us out of business right now. So you need to make sure that you've got some coverage for that. In my opinion, that is the largest risk property managers face today. The largest.
Now, I think some people hear that and they just don't believe it because they haven't seen any companies deal with this. The problems they're dealing with are legal battles with tenants and stuff like this. And so how do you deal with that? Because I think a lot of them they might be thinking, well, Vicky's just saying this because maybe she's selling this, like I don't buy it. So
yeah, I get a $50 referral fee from the insurance people, from Insure Trust, which is the people I trust with my reputation. I get a $50 referral fee for placing a client with them. Not really a big deal, not considering the amount of time it takes, right? So full disclosure, I do, but that keeps my price to my clients down a little bit. So the legal battles behind this. I was at a conference in Atlanta a few months ago, and it was put on by the industry leaders in cyber liability insurance. And I happened to have been speaking to somebody who works for a company that said, oh my God, this just happened. Someone published a link and didn't realize it was an internal link, and it got back, and a whole bunch of our customer data got out there, including the company that we use to store the customer data, their name. And I'm like, whoa. And it's like, I know you're going to this thing. You might hear about it today. Well, sure enough, the attorney, one of the attorneys that was on the stage, spoke about it. We're talking about probably 100,000 people that could have been affected. And in the property management industry, you guys don't know, you don't think about this, but just something as simple as phishing. Phishing attacks are happening more and more and more with smaller companies. If you don't think the crooks don't know that you guys have a plethora of data, you're like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when it comes to small businesses because of the kind of data that you have. These crooks are smart. And what they're doing now is they're sending emails and asking people to transfer funds. You hear on the internet where people are being ripped off because the down payment that was supposed to go to escrow went to somewhere else. And it's all of these phishing things. So you need to make sure that you have coverage for that. And then reputation. What happens to your reputation if you have a data breach? You're kind of hosed. So you need to make sure that wherever you feel like your risk level is comfortable, because we're never going to insure all risk. So you want to work with someone to find out what your risk comfort is, where you can self-insure some risks to maybe keep the premiums down over here, because the more you transfer the risk, the higher the premiums go. Right. So you want to make sure you have good policies in place, that you maybe fish your own company, right? Every company does this. One of my tenants who rented one of my rental properties used to work for Microsoft, and his job was to daily hack IBM. That was his job. All he did was hack IBM all day long. He just tried to find all of the places where he could get in. IBM, that was his job. When you had a conversation with him, he was kind of freaky. He would like take batteries out of cell phones and lock them in the car, and we would stand in the middle of the yard. Because everybody was watching.
Right.
So you just want to make sure that you know what your risks are and how you can mitigate them. General liability policies, most of them don't cover things like when you use someone else's photograph or logo or intellectual property on your website without their permission. You want to make sure you have coverage for that, because we live in a digital world. We can easily violate a trademark or a service mark and not even know we did it. So make sure that those kinds of things, employee theft, huge. That's a huge liability. Like you said, I mean, your employee just deleted your stuff. They could have sold it.
Yeah.
You were lucky. They only deleted it.
And we were able to undelete things, which was great. But yeah, it felt like somebody had walked into my house and, stolen stuff. That's what
They
it
went
felt
through
like.
your underwear drawer.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I get that. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of different coverages that you want to look at, but you want to know that you have the right ones. Just a general liability policy, most people have that, and they'll tell me, oh, that's covered. It's covered under theft. Not covered under theft. But we're all running around, for the most part, in the emperor's new clothes. We think we have coverage for what's going on, and really we're just naked out there.
So is this something that you do with clients, is you'll take a look at what they currently do have, review it, and see where they really are gaps?
I will, and then I'll show you where those gaps are. But the other thing too that we want to look at is, because there's not a lot of money in commissions in writing policies for small businesses, there's just not. I mean, how much are you going to make on a policy that costs $1,200 a year? Those aren't the policies that everybody's chasing if you're in the industry. Just say it. So what you want to make sure that you do is understand what you can get from carriers direct. Folks hear me talk about Hiscox a lot. Hiscox is great. They're an awesome company, and what they've done as a licensed agent, I can sell Hiscox insurance, and I can sell you the same policy you can buy from them direct. It's going to cost you more if you buy it from me, though, because they have to build commissions in.
Right.
And they're templated for industry risk. So do they do everything? No. Are they going to protect you for every issue? No. But you need to know what those issues are that you're not protected for, so that you can take risk mitigation steps in your company to have less risk, because you're self-insuring some risks. You just are. You just want to make sure that the stuff that can put you out of business tomorrow is transferred to someone else. Make sense?
Right. Yeah. So asset protection is also a big deal. So I think those listening also, it would make sense to at some point also talk with an asset protection attorney to make sure that they have a structure in place that protects them as well, because insurance can do so much, but I think it's important to have some asset protection and have your business structure protected, so that they can't literally take your shirt if there's a problem. So,
well, one of the things I like to tell folks is, talk to your attorney on a regular basis. But
yeah,
one of the big questions you need to ask, and this is something that most people who own small companies don't think about. I know about it because one of my clients almost lost her home. But when you sign a document on behalf of your company, if you're the president of the company, you better be signing it with your name as president of, and the name of the company, because there's times when you could be laying your own personal stuff out there on the line because you personally signed it. So you want to be very, very careful about certain things that you're doing, because in today's day and age, it's just super important. If you have an LLC or if you have an S Corp, make sure that you're doing everything you need to do to legally keep those protections in place, because most people don't understand. They're neglecting and they're puncturing that corporate veil of security, and they don't even have it anymore. So there's a lot of different risks that are out there, and it's not just things that are insurable. So that's what we talk about on a regular basis with clients, is what are all of your risks, whether they're insurable risks or not.
All right. So what are the basics that that a property manager should be putting in place? So
Well,
let's say they're a small startup, they're just getting going. I'm guessing some of the more seasoned companies have some, healthy things in place. So what general liability, what are the basics that they should get in place so that they're off to a good start?
Okay, so I have people all the time say, well, I need my general liability in case someone slips and falls at one of the properties that I manage. Well, maybe you do and maybe you don't, because the owner's insurance is supposed to cover that. You're an agent for the owner. So it's like, but what about when I get sued? Well, when you get sued as an agent for the owner, normally that lawsuit isn't actually valid against you, but you still have to defend against it. So have some lawsuit protection, have a good attorney, make sure that you have some way to answer those. E&O insurance, if you're selling, if you are in sales and property management, make sure that you have that, because it's something that's very well used in the real estate industry. Not as much in property management, because you're more of a service and you're operating as an agent. That also depends on what kind of a management agreement you have with your clients. Are you listed on the lease agreement as agent for the owner, or is the owner not listed on your lease agreement? So many management agreements let the owner sit in the bunker. So there's a management agreement between the owner and the management company, and then there's a lease agreement between the management company and the tenant. That's one way to do it. Now, you've got a lot more liability if you have that model, but your owners like it because they get to hide in the bunker and the tenant doesn't even see who they are. Or do you have the lease agreement between the tenant and the owner, and you're just the agent for the owner? You're kind of this bottom of the triangle. And so depends on what your business model is. But what you want to make sure that you absolutely have is a good cyber policy. I think that's probably the most important. And have a great relationship with lawyers, because it's always about people threatening to sue you, like everywhere, over $500. And when a tenant says, "Oh, I'm going to sue you for my $500," well, number one, they probably can't afford to sue you for $500. That's the reason they want their $500 back. But you still have to take precautions so that you could say, but one of those 20 or 30 people could sue you, and then it's cheaper if you would have just given them all back their $500. So you have to figure out what your risks are that way and how you want to do that. So, general liability probably depends on if you're brick and mortar or not. And it depends on what's covered under your cyber policy, because there's pieces of general liability that fall into your cyber policy as well. I highly discourage you from adding a cyber rider to your general liability policy. Not the best way to go. I haven't seen one of them that was very comprehensive. Just haven't seen them. So cyber liability, general liability. If you have company-owned vehicles, you want to make sure you have a good commercial policy. If you're running maintenance out of your property management company, if you have a maintenance company as well, keep them separate. Make them separate corporate identities. Make them separate entities. And then work with it just like you would bill any outside vendor. I highly encourage you to disclose to your owners that you own the management or own the maintenance company, though. Just transparency is a big deal.
Yeah, got it. Okay. All right. So a lot of property management companies also have a real estate company, and sometimes they're both underneath the same business entity. So does that present any unique challenges?
Your insurance is going to be priced differently. Many times your insurance for your real estate, especially if you're just starting out. So I was working with a client not too long ago, and it was like, okay, are you selling real estate under the same company brand? Because your insurance is going to be based on the dollar value of sales. A lot of times what you're going to put in as a small company is, what's your annual revenue? Well, if you're doing sales too, your annual revenue is going to be a lot higher. If you're doing property management, your annual revenue isn't your gross billing. It's not everything you take in under rent. It's only what you make. It's not, you don't include the pass through to the owner in that calculation. So the calculation's much smaller and it makes your premium much lower, especially if you're buying direct. So if you're insuring your real estate company and your property management company separately, you're not going to be paying higher rates for this entity. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I think that it's better to, I don't think that every property you own needs to be in a separate LLC, but I think that every business entity should be separated. Yeah. That's just.
So each business entity should be separate or segregated.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Because you don't want this business to assume the risk of that one, especially if you're just growing this side.
Right. Yeah, and I have a friend who's an asset protection attorney, and she's helping us set up our structure so that everything's kind of, segregated like that, real carefully, so that certain things are not touchable or can impact the others. And I think that's a really smart thing to do. Even if you look at like large buildings, if they have fires, they will have certain sections that will close off, that can be closed off.
Firewalls.
Yeah, these firewalls to protect the rest of it from all, getting impacted or burnt or whatever. And so I think businesses need to be set up that way too, to protect us from the fires in business. And it's sometimes people think, oh, it's so much easier, I'll just put everything together. Even though generally that's probably not a real healthy or great idea. And I think generally brands being separate is just more effective anyway, because they can stand on their own two legs and each be successful in their own category. So Vicky, you've mentioned a few different pitfalls. Are there any other major potential pitfalls that you see happening in the property management industry, things that people should be aware of? And then maybe we can just get into how people can get in touch with you if they have questions.
Perfect. Well, I think one of the big things you want to really pay attention to is with these master policies. Everybody's looking at putting together master policies so that you can, charge fees for your tenants to get their renter's insurance, and for your owners who bring on their property insurance. That's fine, but make sure that you're very, very careful about what your state laws are, because insurance commissioners in most states have laws about who's allowed to charge fees or get a commission or get a referral fee. Even it's really crazy. That was one of the main reasons I got my licenses in the first place, was because I was referring so many people insurance and I couldn't get paid.
Right. If you're gonna
getting my real estate license, that's the next one. I'm gonna get that one because I had a client say, "Hey, you have a real estate license, right?" I'm like, "No, I don't." Why? They're like, "Wow, you just lost like $10,000 because that guy you sent me sold 3 and bought 2." And I'm like,
yeah.
So we need to make sure that we're doing that. Check and double check, and talk to somebody about what's going on. I love the masterminding that goes on in the DoorGrow Club. It's fabulous. I see people passing great information back and forth, whether it's state specific or not. People are really good about saying that. Nobody discusses fees. I just love dealing with the professionals there. It's great because property managers that are really into education, you guys get it. And I know you don't have time to get it all, but make sure that you're paying attention to where your biggest risks are and deal with those on a prioritized basis. That's really what I can say. And cyber insurance, for goodness sakes, make sure you've got it and make sure you know what it is. I was looking at a comparison for one of my clients, and we brought out 4 new policies, 4 new carriers, and then the company that I deal with is InsureTrust. We laid their policy side by side and found out that they were paying twice as much for half the coverage. So make sure that you get educated on that. I can't stress that enough. The amount of money that you save will make up for a lot of other things that you're doing.
Yeah, great. Well, cool. So Vicky, how do people get in touch with you if they have questions or they want to have you take a look at some of what they've got going on?
Well, you can find me in the DoorGrow Club. Just tag my name in there. Otherwise, I stay kind of silent. Mm-hmm. I don't like to be predatory. If you tag me, I'll answer. But otherwise, I kind of try to stay just knowing what people are looking for. You can find me at https:// Methven.agency. And that's METHVEN.agency. My calendar is available there. You can just click calendar and set up a time to meet with me. I'm happy to do that. Facebook Messenger, I get those alerts. I check my email a couple times a day. Vicky with a Y at methvenagency.com.
Perfect.
I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Ask a friend. A lot of people seem to know me. I get those messages. So.
Yeah. Well, cool, Vicky. I appreciate you coming on the show and opening up the listeners' eyes and ears a little bit to the idea of insurance and some of the potential pitfalls. And I appreciate you coming out.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me, Jason.
All right, cool. So again, you can check out Vicky at her site, methven.agency. And for those of you listening, I wanted to point out our DoorGrow score quiz. So if you have a website, a property management website, maybe it's something you got from your property management software, maybe it's something you've had for a couple of years now, it might be time to take a look at that website because it's probably leaking money. And I created a visual quiz based on some of the proven, tested principles that affect conversion. So you can test how effective your website is at making money. And you can get to that by going to doorgrow.com/quiz. So go test your website, do the DoorGrow score quiz, and get your website score. And you may be surprised to see that your really pretty or even brand new website might be getting a low grade, a low letter grade. So you'll get a letter grade out of it, just like a grade on a paper in school. And the goal is to have an A. And so if you're getting a C or a D, or even worse, an F, then you're getting any business at all through your website currently, then you are probably missing out on tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential future ROI every month, just from missing out on a deal or two or three or four or five. So you could be missing out on just as many deals as are actually coming through the website or calling in to your business that you're acquiring. And so that is a massive leak and a massive blind spot. And anything that we might be able to do for you on the website side is far cheaper than the amount of money that you're losing out on every month. So typically a single door is worth maybe about $6,000 lifetime value if you are able to keep them on for maybe about 3 years. And you make roughly about $2,000 a year per door. And in some markets that might be higher. Your retention might be better than that. But that's a pretty good ballpark. And so you could be if you're missing out on 3 deals, you could be missing out on $18,000 a month in future ROI. And this is one reason property management businesses struggle to grow is the leaks that exist that they can't see. So this is a leak I'd like you to be able to see. So check it out, doorgrow.com/quiz. And again, Vicky mentioned our Facebook group. So make sure you get inside our Facebook group. You can get to that by going to doorgrowclub.com and apply to be in our group. It is free. We allow business owners or people starting property management companies to join the group. And it is a phenomenal community and people are very helpful in there. So, and I appreciate everybody that contributes in that group. And that's it for today. Bye, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your day and week.